But we'll get started and talk about the contribution module. This is a module that was introduced in the last couple of years with the idea that it will allow you to reach out to the public and invite them to contribute their personal collection items and their stories to your collection. So it involves a different layer of interaction, if you like, and also community history building. So Whitby Public Library has activated theirs, and here's their link here on the left-hand side. They've got a very small introductory space here. I'll just show you a couple of other examples. The Ontario Genealogical Society has theirs, and they've customized it a little bit more. And the Canada 150 site is based on this contribution module. It's something that allows the people of Canada to contribute their stories about Canada, why it's important to them as a gift to Canada for its 150th anniversary. So because it is very much more based on contributions from the public, it has a more custom look and feel and also more information right at the outset. Now, you'll notice that it has a slightly different kind of appearance than most of the Vita screens, and this is because the contribution module is actually built on a different platform than Vita. So it's on a different platform and it's a different server. So it's not within the usual Vita parameters for updating in terms of your customization and so on. It's not difficult to do, it's just different to do. So I'll show you what it looks like when you open up the screens. So they've got both the ability for people to upload image files or to write a story. So if I click on the upload an image, it opens up a template, and it'll probably feel a little bit familiar to Vita here, where you can choose your file, give it a title, give it a description. You can add geography and also scope your geography, so you can choose if you choose Canada and you choose Ontario, and it's a little bit like working with Vita, the same thing. You wait for the little spinning wheel to come up, and it will give you a geolocation code so that you can assign appropriate geography to your item, and you can assign multiple geographies. So you can tell if, say, someone is telling their family history about maybe immigrating to Canada, they can talk about, we landed in Montreal and then we moved to Chatham and then we moved to the West Coast, and my parents died there, but my sister got married in Saskatoon, and so on. So you can pinpoint different places according to what's important, what's relevant to your story. And then, of course, we ask for the contributor to give their name and their email. The email address is never ever displayed publicly, but we need it for communication back and forth. Now, for your knowledge, this email field will verify that it is a valid email format, but they won't actually validate that it's a valid, they won't send a validation email to the person. It does become applicable when people submit, though, because it will send a confirmation email. So if somebody wants to send you a dummy email, that's fine. It just means that they have no control over seeing when their item goes up and is public. Then they also get to choose whether or not they want their name public on the record or not, and they would simply check yes or no. They click upload. You get a review page, like a preview page, and you can go back and edit your entry if you like. And then you finally click submit, and that's when on the subscriber end, like for you guys, what you get then is an email that's sent to your feedback email at the agency management level. So we'll talk more about sort of the interior workings of this, but that's the basic upload process. Now, if they were to want to upload a story, first of all, they agree to a generic terms of use, so I'll just show you what that looks like. They have to agree to that before they can go on to the next stage. If they want to write a story, you don't get a file upload option, but you do get, again, title and then basically a big text field. So you can copy and paste from another format, or you can simply type in your story here. And again, then you've got your geography and your identifiers and contact information. Now, in some cases, people are using the upload file option and then telling their story as well in the description. So you end up with a bit of a two-tone kind of flavor, if you like. Now let's look at what these look like a little bit. I'm going to browse the collection because these are all contributions. Yes, and Mary, good question is if the items can be moderated. So there's a setting in the configuration screen, and I'll show you, where you can choose whether things can just flow right into your collection or whether you approve them first. Yeah, no, we don't want people just willy-nilly being able to post interesting photographs and stories on your public site. So here we have the collection. We have photographs with stories, and then this is what the stories will look like because they don't have an image associated with them. But if you click through to one of those items, you get kind of a clippings version. This is the same kind of styling that we use for clippings. And then you get some metadata down below. You'll notice that the contributed by field, the person's name is actually a link. So I can click on that link and it will bring back any or all the items that were contributed by her. She may not be a good example. So Harry von Bommel, these are all the things that he's contributed, 79 pieces. So it's a way of kind of tipping your hat to the donor or the contributor, but it's also a way for people on the end user side to say, oh, I know that person. What did they contribute? Maybe I want to upload something. I don't want to duplicate what they did. So that's sort of the public side of the contribution module. Now, to actually do the customization for this, there are a few stages that need to happen. One is that, first of all, you need to be a site administrator to customize your contribution module. The contribution module is available to every subscriber of Vita, so there's one for every site. It's up to you to not activate it, but make it visible so that people know that it's even there. So you need to customize it as a site administrator. Don't forget to think about how you want to gather that content together into groups, and we'll talk about that. And then think about the managing and reviewing of the contributions, as Mary pointed out, as well as making sure that you're making it publicly accessible so that people know that it's there and that that's an option for them. So to work with your contribution module, we need to go into the site management area. And you'll see on the left-hand side that down at the bottom of the pages section is the contribute page. So I'll show you what this looks. This is going to be my training data set. This is what my contribution module is going to look like. Okay, so here's my page title. And I can change that. Now, when we set up the contributions module for you, and we will activate it automatically when we set up your site, we create a generic user contributions group for your agency or your site. So that's where naturally things will flow into. And the reason that we put everything into a group is so that you can obviously have a distinct or a discrete sub-collection of user contributions, and then you can point to that group if you want to. You can manage them because that's where they'll both be public and non-public. So when you're doing your record management, you can go into the group and you can see which ones are public and which ones are not. You can approve and make them public. So that's for sort of generic use. Now, the other thing the contribution module can be used for and has been used for is thematic gathering of public contributions. So Oakville, for example, does a day in the life of Oakville, and it's a photography competition. And so they used the contribution module to gather those photographic entries, and they flowed it into a specific group that they created called A Day in the Life of Oakville 2016. And so they would do the drive to gather, to garner interest and to gather the contributions, and then they made sure that the setting was that it would go into that group and in it would flow automatically. So you can change that up at will. So you can always have it, at the user contributions, but then if you have a particular thematic drive for contributions, you can change the group. The URL is a fairly straightforward thing that we also set up when we're doing your site setup. So it's a very straightforward, very straightforward URL with your agency or site name kind of buried in the middle. So this linked URL that's here will lead you to your public side. And now we have our settings. So when does the record become public? You can have it so that it is on submission or after agency review. So it can just go automatically up onto your site or after agency review. And then you have the option of offering people the ability to upload image files or to tell stories or both. These are the default settings. So agency review before it becomes public, and that both the file upload and the tell story options are both open. And then as with any Vita screen, you have a lot of customization in terms of the labeling and the language. So this is where you can change that introductory statement, this business here. You'll notice that there's some HTML. I've got a mouse over link here. Oh, cool. And then you can change your labels and links for directing people on how to do their things. Now, you'll notice, well, I've gone away from it, but in the template for uploading, that there are little screen hints as well that are about, kind of tips on what you can and can't do as you're moving through the template on the public side. So on the right-hand side, you've got these little extra pieces of information. Those are not customizable at this point. They're sort of generic pieces of information that are more about the functionality of the fields. If you need them translated into French, for example, I'm trying to think. We do have a French version of the Contribute module. We don't as yet have a Spanish version of the Contribute module, even though we're building a Spanish prototype for Vita. And then lots and lots of labels and labels. Take your time, go through it, see if there's anything that you want to change. The I agree button. Well, they won't go anywhere if they don't click that I agree button. So it's kind of the last thing on the screen before they enter any information, right? So that's what they will see, essentially. Well, it's an interesting point. We can talk more about possibly making that a little bolder in terms of the styling. And again, because it's on a different platform, and maybe red, because it's on a different platform, we don't have the same styling options that you do in Vita for these screens. So we can change the text, but we can't change the texture, if you like. So I'm just scrolling down because a lot of this is stuff that you will have sort of, it's par for the course. If you came to the site management course or session, you will have seen a lot of this kind of relabeling option and the messaging option. There are certain settings that come from other places in Vita. So the idea that somebody's name can be made public or not, that's actually coming from the comments section. So this link here will take you back to the comments field. But before you leave this screen, click the update button if you make any changes whatsoever, before you go and investigate these if you've made any changes. And then at the very bottom, this is the thing with it being on a different platform. In order for us to push those changes up, you can't do it from within a Vita screen. So you actually have to email us, and this is a little bit clunky, but you have to email us and we will reinitialize it so that your changes get pushed up. If you're working on your contribute module, let us know. Like, I want to customize this today because I want to do a thing next week. We'll stick with you and we'll push that button as many times as you need it until you see what you want to see and you've made the changes that you want to make. It's not a problem on our end. Just let us know. There's a link here to the help@vitatoolkit.ca email. You know where to reach us otherwise. And then we reinitialize it and we'll make the changes. Okay, so that's the one sort of hiccup of having it on two platforms, but it actually allows for more versatility. And this is a platform that we're going to be changing up with time. So it's just kind of a new component that moved over first. So that's the customization part of it. And I'll take note about making the agreement statement area more visible. Now the thing is once you've contributed, once you've that is, sorry, Mary, the reinitialized public site won't change for the contribution module. That's the difference. This will change for all the other stuff, but it's just the contribution module that we have to trigger it on our end. So you can press this one if you like, but it's not gonna show you what you want to see. So now that you've customized your page, so that's what I mean, this part, this part, this part, that's what we've been talking about doing, is changing those things. You'll notice that there's a linked return back to your site at the bottom with your site name at the bottom, and also your banner, your branding will come forward into the space. So there is continuous branding, even though it's a slightly different look and feel. Now the next thing you need to do is make it obvious to people about that they have the option to share a story. So we've got a share a story link on the sidebar here. Same thing on the OGS. They've got it on their right-hand sidebar instead. And they've got family story instead. In the Canada 150, he's got it right smack dab in the middle, because that's what this is all about, is gathering contributions from the public. So these are basically featured links, and he's changed the featured link label and then added these two spaces. And then on our own training site, we have an enthusiastic little sidebar entry here in a subscribe and share sidebar. So that's what needs to happen, is you need to then offer up the option. So in order to do that, you go back to your site management screens again, because that's where you're living for this contribution module, and open up your search page. And this is where you can then add your, you can add a link on the sidebar. There it is there. And you need to know that URL, the one that was exposed on the contribute module page there. So don't forget to have that in hand. And there's got to be a contribute/upload after your URL, your unique URL. The contribute upload is where the form begins. So you can add it to a sidebar. You can add it as a link here. If you want to add it, just pop it in here right away. And then don't forget to click update. And then unlike the contribute module, you can reinitialize the public site and those links will go out publicly. And if you are doing something thematic, you know, build out a little bit of a story around it. You know, maybe it's contribute to the day in the life of Oakville here, right? People know to go there, but then don't forget to tell people beyond your site that that's what has to happen. Now, when somebody does submit something, there has to be somebody at your end receiving the email alert that something has happened. So I'm going back to my main menu. This is in agency management. And this is the email where this information will go. So make sure that this is a monitored email. And it's good to have this one be the same as your site feedback email. So I'm going to just click through here, back to site management, general values, site email. Okay, so this is the one that we'll also be receiving for testimonials, which we'll talk to you about at the end of the day today. Once you receive a contribution, and I'll go back into my main menu and we can actually search by contributed. That's the other thing about the contributions, is that they're flagged as a contribution, so they can be featured on the advanced search screen both publicly and for data management. But they'll also be, whoops, maybe we don't have any contributions in our collection here. I'll take a look on the Whitby site. So they've got contributions. That's why this is even showing up on their advanced search screen. And I'm clicking through, and now I have a series of photographs that were uploaded by the public to this collection. So what I'll receive is essentially what looks like a VITA record. The difference will be that it will be automatically added to the group that you assigned, right? Here we go. They've changed the name of the group. And then in this case, they don't have, the donor name is not exposed, but the donor name would be here as well. And you can see that they've done a little bit more with the metadata than what was available on the public form. So they've added personal names, they've added subjects, and this was probably generated by somebody at the library, and then they contributed it through the module to try and spur some activity. But it means that you can then go in and you can actually add metadata, or you can edit. So if there are, you know, terrible spelling mistakes or perhaps some inappropriate language, you can make those changes. You can, if the email address that the contributor gave you is correct and valid, you can actually communicate with the contributor and together work on the changes before you make it public, and so on. So you've got lots of options for working with kind of building out those records when they come into you. So what you'll get is an email address or an email saying a new contribution has come in. If you're on your VITA main menu, it will show up in the bottom right hand side as a contribution waiting for review. And they will also be flagged in your top 100. So if somebody contributes something, it will show up and will have a red label like this that says contribution beside it. So that's one way to navigate to them. And of course there is the group. So once you've got your, you've assigned a group, or you've assigned your contribution module to a group, you can simply go in and review any contributions. This one is empty. But if you have contributions, they'll all be listed here, and then you can go through and it will be flagged as public or non-public. So that's another way of managing your collections. And then in terms of the contributions displaying, basically we saw that here where we've got the a list of contributions because they were flagged as contributed records here. And on the right hand side we get all of the different facets that you would have for any other set of records. So if they had been using different groups over time, then these would be showing up in multiple groups. As well, if you've got someone who actually does name themselves as a donor, you can click through and can be and you can scope by donor name. Now in the case of the 150, I believe, it is possible to have a browse by contributor option. See if that's something I can bring back. So it's a tag cloud essentially of the contributor names. So that's another link that you can put up if you do end up with a lot of contributions, and then people can then navigate. You know, vanity searching is a big thing still, right? And so it's like anything else. If you have people submitting comments and you don't approve them for 3 years, they're going to walk away. But if you approve them in, you know, a day or two, people will be kind of more spurred to interact with your space and to share your space, and because they have buy-in and they have, you know, they've been integrated into your collection. So it's an important thing to do, is to acknowledge and expose as much information about the people that are participating in your collection as possible. So that's one of the things that's great about the contribution module, is this ability to put out broadcast to people, use it as a publication tool, use it as a promotion tool. You know, this is what we've put up, but maybe you have something that you'd like to add, right? We're missing pieces of our newspaper. We have school photos from the region. Do you have your old school photo? You know, those kinds of questions. People love to dig around and find that kind of stuff. Like, they're more likely to stick it up on Facebook. But the fact is that Facebook, you can't get that data back out and you can't search it. So this is a much stronger way of sharing community history and building that kind of community memory together.